Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before I get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Brittany Bull on the podcast. She's an IFBB Pro Women's Physique Division competitor, and she's coming to us all the way from the Lone Star State that is Texas. But most importantly, she's our current guest. Brittany, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, man. It's great to be here.
Before we get started, I do have to ask, though, what is the weather like down there in Texas right now?
Actually, it's really nice today. It's like in the 80s as of right now, and it's sunny. And right now, there's not a cloud in the sky. So, I mean, it rained last night pretty hard, but no, it's really nice now. We haven't got to the 100-degree weather down here yet.
I was gonna say, I enjoy it while it lasts, yeah, because well, up here too, it's getting a little bit hotter, but not nearly as hot as that. But yeah, I always like to ask when we have the hotter temperatured people on what their weather is like. But why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on what really inspired and what really motivated you to make this change and adapt this healthy and fit lifestyle?
Okay, well, so I never was really, I don't have the cool stories of I was overweight and I lost all this weight. Like I was really like a skinny girl. Like I was the skinny awkward girl, with the weird hair sort of thing. Thanks, mom. But I was in high school and my one of our high school coaches, Coach Schultz, came in and said, "We're going to start a powerlifting team." And for some weird reason, he thought that somebody with chicken legs and chicken arms could be a good addition to this team. So he brought me in, and I was actually a lot stronger than I thought. So that kind of really got me in love with the iron and lifting and weightlifting and stuff. I didn't really get into bodybuilding until I was in my 30s. I'm about to be 36 now. So it was until later in life that I got into bodybuilding, but I was always in sports and athletics. I hate to say I was always been kind of good at any sport I tried, but I never was just like amazing. I was one of those athletes that was just a good athlete at whatever I tried, but I was never just great in anything. So, bodybuilding is kind of where I feel like I fit. Like, I'm not very coordinated. Like eye hand coordination isn't there, and I darn sure can't play soccer like at all. Like my feet don't do those things. So, I did cheer. I cheered for a long time, and I think a lot of us, like female bodybuilders of any degree of class, I think a lot of us have some like cheer or dance ability or something. And it's not for the faint of heart. It's not for the people who cannot commit to that level of drive and putting your body through those things. So
I was gonna say, out of all the ones that I've talked to, yeah, only about a handful of them have had like no athletic background at all. I'd say, vastly like 95% of them have. And can we just say shout out to your coach in high school for determining that the girl, like you said, with the scrawny legs and the scrawny arms for being the good
I
power lifter.
know.
So I don't know if that guy just has some super good hindsight or yeah, who knows?
I don't know, but he still Coach Schultz still comes to all my shows, like most of them, if they're local and he's able to make it. He's come to a lot of my shows, so he still keeps up with me here. What, like 16, 18 years later, or something like that. So, but he did, and it was the first powerlifting team, and they still have girls powerlifting at my high school now, and so it was really cool to like be a part of something that like got that started. And I did okay. I got like fifth at region and stuff like that. I did okay, but I was very, for my weight in powerlifting, you have, the weight classes. And so I was really tall for my weight class. So it's a lot easier if you're 4'9" and 105 pounds than when you're 5'5" 5.5", 6, and you're 130 pounds or whatever. So, but I've definitely like to call myself now a bodybuilder, though. Like a lot of people say, "Are you a weightlifter?" And I'm not. Like I'm a bodybuilder. I don't lift for weight purposes. Like I couldn't tell you what my max is on any of it. Honestly, I lift to compose my body and make it look good instead of like for strength. So a lot of people think I'm probably really strong, and people are like, "Let's arm wrestle," and I'm like, you'll probably beat me.
Well, that's one thing I always say too, is that the public has this big misconception where, I mean, now don't get me wrong, some bodybuilders, really can put up, some serious weight. But a lot of the time, if you want to look for someone who's like super, super strong, you go and look at the powerlifters, which, let's be honest, some of the powerlifters don't look like they've ever worked out a day in their life. If you just see them walking down the street, and then the next thing you know, they're benching like 400 pounds, and you're like, oh, okay, that's a thing, I guess. Like,
Mhm.
I gotta say, the one guest that has put me to shame more than anyone else, she was 4'10", and she had two of her three major lifts were better lifts than mine, and I'm almost a foot and a half taller than her, and I was like, okay, this is just absolutely ridiculous.
and I have mad respect for them. Like because they put their bodies through a completely different trashing than what I do. So I have complete respect for powerlifters, strongmen. Like I couldn't pick up a stone that's like this big around and weighs 200 pounds. Like, are you kidding? I can't pick up a dumbbell that weighs 200 pounds, like no less something awkward shape. So mad respect for all levels and
Yep.
of the weightlifting, bodybuilding, strongman sporting. So it's good stuff.
Absolutely. And one of the questions that I always love to ask all of the health and fitness guests that I have on is, I mean, I always say if you're to walk into a gym and there's 100 people in that gym, there's 100 different ways as to how those people got into shape. Whether it comes down to their diet, their nutrition, how many reps they do, what exercises they do. So many little things add up to the overall package that people end up seeing. Was that a struggle for you when you were getting started really with the bodybuilding aspect? Because I always say if you're to walk up to someone and say, what did you train for that body part? It looks amazing. What works best for them 99% of the time is not going to work as good for you.
I did my very first competition solo, except I had a trainer who was helping me train like my legs and my glutes. That's always been my downfall. My kryptonite is my legs. Like it's been hard to get them not even conditioned, but to grow more or less. So I had somebody helping me there, but I did my own diet based off of like, I think it's probably a mistake, a common mistake that a lot of amateurs make or a lot of first timers make. They're like, well, I'll just take bits and pieces of what everybody says that they're doing and hope it works for me. So, my first competition, if I would have, I bombed one. Okay. I did bikini and I was like 16th of 16 and a half people. Like, I mean, I was last. And I was shredded to the bone. Like I thought that I was going to do so well, but I was not what they want for the bikini division. But beyond that, I ate fish and asparagus 5 meals a day for 5 weeks straight. Period. Like that's all I ate. It was horrible. It was horrible. But everybody that I talked to was just like, "Oh, fish and asparagus is what gets you shredded the last couple of weeks. Fish and asparagus." So that's what I did. I didn't have anybody to really guide me through that. At the time, like I wasn't going to pay for a coach because I'm broke. Like I can't afford a coach. But if I would have owned, like I was fine going out and spending money on everything else. I didn't know how to prioritize what I wanted for this, for this lifestyle back then. So, you know, it was a challenge, but once I got me a coach that could help me and teach me and guide me on how to do it, it really turned things around for me. I was what I would call I was skinny fat. I think before then, people see pictures of me prior. It's almost like unbelievable, and it is so much like hard work and consistency and dedication just in the gym and on the diet. A lot of people think we eat nothing, but in true life, we eat more. We probably eat double what most, actual people eat. It's just what we are eating when we do it. So, but it was a struggle, but it's something that I really overcome with a good coach.
Well, that's one thing I always got to tell people too is make sure that you get a coach because we've had so many people just like you started out, just doing it themselves, and then it's like, oh god. I mean, we've had like those one or two genetic freaks that are able to like win their first show doing it all by themselves, but that's just because I have no reason why. But yeah, even when you said fish and asparagus, I was like, ugh, that just makes
You
me
see this look on my face?
yeah.
This look? Okay. That's the look that I give people when they tell me that their trainers are their coaches, because there's a huge difference
Hmm.
between your trainer and a coach. I can work you out in the gym. I can make you cry, sweat, laugh, whatever it is that you want to do in the gym, I can accomplish that. But putting somebody on stage, health, like without putting health at risk and all that stuff, that's a completely different ball game. So, I completely like I tell everybody, and I completely agree with you. You must find a quality coach, a knowledgeable coach, not just somebody who's like, I did one show and won, and now I'm a coach. Because what worked for them won't work for you probably.
Well, yeah, like you were talking about, like those people who like do one show and then they think that that makes them like a qualified coach, and they're like, oh yeah, everyone come follow me. I did one show where I placed 15th out of 16th or whatever, and then they're like, yeah, come follow me. So yeah, I've heard that a few times. But one of the fun questions I like to ask, because everyone's genetics are differently, everyone always has that one body part when they get started training that really, really takes off where they don't have to train it as much. And then everyone always has that one body part that just lags behind that they don't have to train as much. Or I mean, that they have to train into overdrive basically to get it to catch up to everything else. What were those body parts for you? Now, I'll give you my examples first. So for me, I mean, my back, because I had jobs all throughout college where I was, lifting and loading heavy packages into trucks the whole time. So, I mean, your back either got really big or it didn't get, or you basically quit. And then for me
Right.
being 6'3", my lower body, just my legs are just absolutely shot, where I mean, I just have to train them into overdrive just to get them to look like any semblance like I work out. But what were those body parts for you when you were getting started?
So my shoulders have always come in pretty easily. My lower back kind of lags, but really overall back is decent. My legs, like I said earlier, my legs have always been the struggle for me, specifically my glute and hamstring area. Again, it's not on the conditioning, it's the actually growing them and getting the size on them. I think I just overcompensate with my quads. I've really had to concentrate lately on breaking that down, and I separate a quad day to a glute ham day. But my shoulders have been one thing that, and arms, my shoulders and arms. Last year, I think I trained arms like maybe once a month. I think they just get residual off of like what I do with every other body part. So I don't really train chest very much. I never really have. I think it just gets residual too from everything else. But I mean, my shoulders and arms have always been my strong suit, my delts and arms
Yeah,
by
that's
far.
yeah, that's and that one that's an awesome thing to really have. But I gotta say, for me, like calves too, are probably my number one. Yep, see,
Okay,
every
I forgot
single
about that.
time, every single time. Yep, because that's the one thing. It's 99% genetic, basically. Where I mean, I could train calves, every day for the rest of my life, and they wouldn't gain an ounce. And I see someone who walks in the gym with like these massive calves, and I'm just like, okay, let's be honest. You've never trained them a day in your life. You're just born like that. So, yep, calves.
I do notice a lot of people with amazing calves used to be bigger people.
That too.
You know what I mean? It's like they used to be bigger people, and they've lost all this weight and they shredded down, and they've got these immaculate calves. Like my abs, never had an issue with abs. Like even now in off season, like I don't have shredded abs, but they're still there. And I've never had an issue with abs coming in either. And I know that's one thing that a lot of people, even a lot of women, have an issue sometimes really bringing in hardcore, which I've never had kids either, but I've seen some women that have 3 kids that have 6-pack and 8-pack abs. So,
We had a mom on last week that had 6 kids, and she still had
oh my
really ripped abs, and I was like, "Okay, that's not even
God, bless
fair."
her soul.
I was like, "Just stop it." It's like, "Come on, this is just absolutely ridiculous." And she was like 50 years old too, and I was like, "Okay, this is just absolutely ridiculous." But yeah, I totally get what you're saying. But I always say, if you were to poll the general public, most people don't realize that just to be able to get into shape, to go on a prep, takes so much hard work, dedication, determination that, I mean, 95% of the general public would not even be able to get into that type of shape. But then just going on a prep, I mean, you are notching things up to such an extreme level where it comes to, I mean, your diet has to be basically perfect. You got to get all of your workouts in. I mean, everything just becomes so scientific. What was that adjustment like for you when you went from, never being on a prep before to all of a sudden just doing this prep where, I mean, everything's just got to be so down pat?
It's challenging, but it's like a good challenge because I'm a robot in prep. You tell me what to do and I will do it. I mean, I make the joke, tell me to eat dog shit, and I probably would. Like, if I think it's going to make me be ready for stage, you know, then I would. Obviously, I'm not going to do anything that would like seriously jeopardize my health to get there. It's just really, it might be worth it for some, but I'd rather have longevity. Like, longevity in the sport is something that there really isn't a lot of. And so that's one of my big goals is longevity. But staying to you're right. It's got your diet has to be on point with your body, like with your body functions and everything. It's got to be what's right for your body. Some people are good with fat, some people are good with carbs, some people are good with a little bit of both. So as long as you figure out what is up with your body and how your body's going to react, that part can be easier figured out.
Mhm.
So
And what was your main decision to go all the way from bikini to physique? And for anyone that doesn't know that, I mean, physique, that's the closest thing now to bodybuilding, basically, now that's still in the competition, because bodybuilding got voted, they took away bodybuilding from being a qualified event. But what made your decision to go from bikini, which is like the smallest, and like, I mean, basically, like it is what it is. Like, it's basically like bikini girls, basically, like you'd see on the beach, kind of.
so when I did bikini, a lot of people start off in bikini because it's like it's like, I don't want to say the easiest, but it is. It's like the least requirement for being conditioned or for being muscular. Like, you don't have to have those things. So it's a good like starter step to kind of see where you are. Um, I didn't really know. I'd never done anything like that before, so I didn't really know what my body was truly capable of doing until it did it. So, once I got on stage and figured out that my body was coming in way more conditioned and shredded than the girls that I was standing next to, and that really hurt me. Like the judges told me, like, you're too much for bikini, you must move up. Well, I'm not big enough. I not even was close to big enough for women's physique. So the next step is figure. So I moved up to figure. I turned pro in figure. I competed in figure for 2 years and then turned pro and competed my first year as a pro in figure. And I was in the two shows that I competed in figure as a pro, I was pushed out of the top five. And when I asked the judges critique as to why, it was because I was too much for figure. I was too conditioned for figure. I did not have the shape for figure. And then Tim Gardner told me at the Greater Gulf of 2017, I talked to him the next morning and he said, you need to go women's physique. You're there. You're what is the requirement. So the next show that August, I'd already registered for figure, but I went ahead and called in and changed my registration to women's physique. And that was my first time. So I had like two pro debuts in 1 year. I pro debuted in figure and then 3 months later turned around and pro debuted in women's physique in San Antonio. And I placed top five in that one. And I think that just kind of solidified like where I should have been. I love the routine part. I'm a poser. I love to pose. I love to teach posing. So, I think that comes from the cheer and dance part. So
Well, that leads me perfectly into my next question, because one of the things that I would have never guessed is the hardest thing for all these competitors is posing when I first started this podcast. But now I like to say, for a lot of people, it is the hardest thing. And I like to compare it now to, being a great driver, where you can be a good driver, you can never be a perfect driver. You can be a good poser, you can never be a perfect poser. It's always ever evolving. What has your experience with posing been like?
I took a lot of my posing inspiration from the classics. My posing coach, who is Jeff Dwelly, he has really guided me into that more classic style of it. It works well with my body, and I really just enjoy teaching. I feel like it's very artistic. So, I see posing as like that's your presentation. Like you're being able to present all of your hard work and everything at that moment. And you can have the best physique on the stage. You can have the best physique that you've ever had, but if you cannot pose and you cannot show it off and you cannot present it, then they can't judge it. It can't be judged. It can't be truly seen for what it is, or respected or appreciated for what it is. So that's why I'm a fan of posing, because that is what you worked for. Yes, you've worked hard to look good, but you have to work hard to present it too. Just like in anything.
I've always said that you could have the best body of all time and it doesn't matter as long as you don't know how to pose. Doesn't matter one bit. But now, what was that adjustment like going from those figure poses to those physique poses? Because for anyone who doesn't know, with figure and with bikini, it's a lot of like, your quarter turns, and there's not really, like the front double bicep that everyone always associates with bodybuilding, or, the back pose. What was that adjustment like going from those to the physique poses?
You have the same quarter turn. So the same, like, front
Yep.
side, quarter turn, quarter turn, quarter turn. I personally was already practicing women's physique posing as a figure competitor. I find that even if you're a bikini girl, knowing how to do a lat spread will allow you to mentally connect to muscles that you didn't even know that you could connect to and perfect your posing. So just because you're not going to do a front double bicep on stage, I didn't realize how wide I could get my lats until I started doing bicep poses, when you can actually get them fully fanned out and stuff. So I was already doing the poses. I went and worked with Jeff, and I worked with Gina Davis once up in Oklahoma, and they kind of helped me perfect a little bit of posing and kind of find my groove in it. But they both knew, like, you're gonna run with this. Like, you've got the creative artistic ability to kind of run with it and do my own thing. And so that's what I've done. And it is truly one of my favorite parts of the
Yeah,
whole thing.
absolutely. So what is your favorite physique pose and least favorite physique pose to do?
Um, Least favorite is probably my just front relax pose. I do have, I've got a contort in my front double bicep. I do a hip drop and a twist to make my waist come in a little bit more. That is the front lat spread is a very unforgiving pose. Like if you've got flaws, it's going to show it.
Mhm.
Same thing with the back. But I feel that I come in, lean enough in my glutes and hamstrings that I like the way I look back there. My favorite pose is probably my tricep pose or even my side chest. And it's because I don't do a normal leg extended pose. I actually do more of a classic leg, a classic physique leg. So my leg is kind of behind me and I kind of hip drop into it. So I like those. Those are probably my favorite two poses just because they're not the normal that you would see.
Well, I was gonna say the one benefit though to the back pose is that you can kind of let your face down. You don't have to be smiling the whole time. You can kind of just be relax a tad bit and just be like, oh, okay, now I
I
can take
still
a
do
quick breathe.
though.
Yep, yep.
I still do. Once I'm in that zone on stage, I have to stay there. Like my face is on, 99.9% of the time. Unless I'm just like unless I'm just dog tired. I
Yeah.
stood on stage for 47 minutes in one show waiting on everybody else to go. That was before the call outs or anything because my name's Brittany Bull. So guess who goes number one most times?
Yeah.
So, and we stand on stage while everybody else presents. So you get up to about 2 minutes and you got 22 girls going. So 44 minutes in routines.
And I always gotta say most people don't realize just these posing sessions that some of these people do, that's more of a workout than their actual workout sometimes. And I mean, we've heard stories about, people after shows, I mean, they've never been more sore a day in their life, basically, just because of what that really takes out of it, especially like you said, 47 minutes to be up there, even just in like a front relax or something like that. I mean, the body was not designed to be like that for that extended period of time. So yeah, that can just be so rough on people. But now we talked about this before, but I'm one of the palest people that you've ever met in your entire life, being from the upper Midwest and my Norwegian roots where I can't go out in the sun for an extended period of time without getting just burnt to an absolute crisp. But you guys also get to get tan, and I've never been tan a day in my life. I either get farmer's tan, well, let's be honest, that is not a real tan, or like I said before, I get burnt to an absolute crisp. What is that experience and what is that feeling like for you when you get that tan on? Because we hear so many stories about how, people have talked about, like they see muscles that you never even knew that you ever had. Everything really seems to pop out. What is that feeling like for you when you get that tan on?
So I love it. It's definitely a cool part of the whole process, because you're standing there and you can't spray tan beforehand. You can't really do any lotions that'll help you tan beforehand. So you are your own little pasty self, or whatever your natural color of skin is. I am Irish, so I'm pasty. Like, I mean, this is a little bit of rub on tan, so and a little bit of outside tan, but I am white. So when I do get that spray tan on, it's pretty cool, and it does bring out things that you wouldn't normally see just looking at yourself. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Like I dig it. I've had one bad spray tan before though, and it completely like ruined me on that show. So, but the tan makes a big difference. So you want to when you do pick your people that are going to tan you, you definitely want to make sure you pick some good ones.
Well, yeah, and I always say too, like you have to be basically like a statue. You can't really stand up against anything. You can't really sit on anything. I mean, you got to bring your own bed sheets. It just adds on to like what these competitors have to go through to be able to get onto a stage. But now, a question that I love to ask all of my guests, whether they be my bands, my musicians, or my bodybuilders. For my bands, I always like to ask, what is that feeling like when you get to perform live on stage in front of hundreds of thousands of people? And that also applies to the bodybuilders as well. What is that feeling like for you when you get to step on stage and show off all of that hard work that you've worked months upon months for?
Believe it or not, I still get a little bit of stage fright. A lot of people think like pros, you're beyond that. You don't do that. No, you're still standing there going, okay, like you have to breathe, like your heart's still pumping in your chest a little bit hard. Like, you're wondering, like, am I going to forget my routine? Am I not going to flare my lats correctly? So, it's, it's such a rush to get up there though, that the second I get on stage, the second I hear Bob Cicciarillo say my name, it's almost like everything just kind of like falls away. And I'm literally the only one up there and nobody else is around. And I'm right back in my posing room doing my own thing, and the music is loud and blaring just like I pose to. So, you know, I really honestly say I thrive in that. I thrive on stage. I get into the feel of it, and I really enjoy it. It's one of those rushes that people talk about, whether it be skydiving or bungee jumping or whatever it is. Like, it's a rush. It truly is a rush to be, because you're vulnerable. You're so vulnerable. You're standing up there half naked, and you're there to be judged, knowingly to be judged, not on who you are as a person, not on what you've been through to get there, but on what they see standing in front of them right then and there. You could have lost 500 pounds to get on that stage, and nobody cares unless, you know,
Mhm.
All they care about is what you look like, and that's a very vulnerable but freeing feeling. So
Absolutely. And out of all the stage songs that you're out of all the routine music that you've used, what has been your favorite?
I did Kings and Queens by 30 Seconds to Mars. So it's my probably my favorite music video. It is a very powerful song. And I kind of cried on stage a little bit when it was doing it because I
Trying to get
worked
the
for
sympathy vote?
yeah, I worked for months on that routine. It truly is one of my favorite songs. And like I said, it's such a powerful song. You can watch it on, it's actually on YouTube. And I didn't even know that until a couple of months ago when somebody was like, dude, your routine's on YouTube. And you go back and you watch yourself and you're like, oh man, like, I don't remember that part.
I always like to ask, I mean, you've been on stage for like 47 minutes, so obviously it's going to feel super long being up there for that long. But when you're up there just for your normal routine, does that time feel longer than it actually is?
Um, that's a good question. Something, yes, but no. Like I get lost at like I tell people when you do your routine, you pick a song that means something to you. Not just like, oh, it's a great song to pose to. Like, do you really like The Last of the Mohicans? Or is it just a great song that you picked? Like, do you even know where the song came from? So I picked a song and I just get lost in it. So I could be up there for 10 minutes and I wouldn't care, not one bit, because I'm just doing my thing with a song that I truly love. Now, if I was up there to a song that I didn't know and didn't like, I mean, probably be a different story.
Yeah.
And I've been lucky enough that in prejudging, they have like just house music playing. I've been lucky enough in prejudging to have some like pretty righteous music banging in the background when I go out to do my thing. They're like, I got rich people problems, so you get down. So
That is definitely a benefit. But now, what is your favorite go-to post-show meal?
post show meal.
Hmm.
Oh man. Well, considering like every time I've gone for post show meal, it always gets messed up, which is legitimately the way it always happens. The one person who's been in prep doesn't get to eat, but breakfast. I'm a breakfast girl. Biscuits and gravy. I'm from the country. It's what I do.
That's actually the second time we've heard biscuits and gravy on this podcast. But yeah, I always said if I ever competed, I would just rent out a Five Guys and just walk in there with $1,000 and just say, "Hey, I'm buying you out for the night. Feed me until I either die, pass out, or throw up. Either way, I'm getting my money's worth." But one of the questions that I love to ask, because it's never really talked about, I wouldn't say as much on Instagram or social media as it should be, is that a lot of people don't realize that stage look that you guys present, that's not sustainable. I mean, there's so many times that we've had people on where they, went into bodybuilding first off and they didn't realize that. So then they started freaking out when they started putting on weight, post show. But it's honestly just one of those things that I think should be more well known, because a lot of people just think, with all that hard work and dedication that, oh, they're like, how come they're not able to put that weight on? Because it's not a sustainable weight from all the dieting and through all of the manipulation that you put into your body to look that way. Was that a struggle for you when you first realized that, hey, like this stage look that I look, that's the best I'm going to look for a long time, and it's going to, I'm not going to be able to maintain it? And has that evolved? Has it gotten easier to accept that as your career has gone on?
Oh gosh, man, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? You know, Bodybuilders, we are really messed up people. We're real sadistic and we are dysmorphic and we are cruel to ourselves. Like mentally, we are abusive to ourselves, like not to one another, but to ourselves. We will lift each other up and tell each other we look great all day long. But when you look in the mirror and you don't see what you see on stage, it is a kick in the face because you know your own potential. And if you're like me, like you want to live up to the best of your potential all the time. So, I wrote an article not too long ago about the post show blues, about accepting that part of it, that it's just accepting the part of it. It's something that you get to experience, but like nothing lasts forever. You couldn't look like that forever, even if you had a magic pill. If you stay on that diet, if you stay on prep diet all the time and you diet to that extent, there are going to be complications, health complications. Like, the most unhealthiest we are the entire time is when we're standing on that stage. So it is definitely something that I work through it every year. Every time I come out of show season, every time I go into off season, but it truly is about accepting and finding the balance in all of it and trusting that balance and knowing that on the inside, it doesn't matter if you put on 15, 20, 30 pounds, you know that you're capable of taking it back off. you know that you can do those things, but it's not healthy, it's not realistic to think that you can walk around at 5, 6, 8% body fat year round without causing serious health complications. And there are people, I don't want to say that it's not possible, because no, you can do it. There are people who do it. However, just remember what I was talking about, longevity. Theirs is not going to be, because their body will eventually give out on them. Like, you can only put your body through so much. So, it embrace that part of the post show, but I'm not saying to go like binge. The binging is what really hurts people. They've been so depleted for so long, and then they're just like, gimme, 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 gimme. And 30 pounds in a week is not exactly the healthiest way to go about putting some weight back on.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've heard stories like that too, where it's like 30 pounds in a week, but people just don't realize when you've restricted yourself that much, the first time you start eating, I mean, everything that you put in your mouth is going to basically be extra weight. Basically, anything that's not your restricted really diet. So that's one thing. And yeah, also like you were saying too. I mean, we have had those weird genetic freaks on there where they try to do it for years at a time, but then, like I say, like even the one I've been doing this podcast for. I mean, next week is going to be my 1 year anniversary of doing this, and we've had people on that I had
Oh,
on.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I know. I'm actually really, really proud. I'm actually playing a little special thing, so everyone keep posted for that. But honestly, like we've had people that I had on, maybe in like the first, because I started out like the first 3 months with like my musicians, and then I moved on to health and fitness. But we've had people who I had on for like my first month of health and fitness. They're not competing anymore just because they tried to do that, and it's only been 9 months since then where they're just like, okay, yeah, I was crazy for trying that. Like it's not gonna happen. So yeah, that's why I love to bring up that question. But another myth and stereotype that I love to bust on this podcast. I mean, we talked about this before we started recording, and I always say, it's gotten better the last 5 years due to Instagram, but there's just still a significant amount of women that still have that fear where they go to the gym. They pick up one barbell, they do one bicep curl, they do one push-up, they do one pull-up. They're going to put on 50 pounds of muscle overnight. I would pay them my entire life savings to basically, swap genetics if that was the case. I think everyone would. They become like the first ever trillionaire. I always say the government would kidnap them and basically, take their genetics out and try to like give it to everyone else. I mean, it would just be the number one news story, but obviously that is not the case. Did you have that fear when you were getting started? And even if you didn't, I mean, I bet you still hear that all the time. How do you like to respond to that?
So after my very first show, when I was Bikini, remember Bikini, my mom looked at me and said, just don't get too big. Okay. I love you, mom. But she said, just don't get too big. You don't want to look like a man. My mom suffered the same veil over her face that a lot of other women and just people in general do. You're right. You know what? Sign me up to be donating to that person who can put on 50 pounds of muscle overnight, because I could use some on my lower half right about now. So if that's the case, but I have worked 18 years now, longer even, to acquire what I have now. And I don't think I'm even close to like what a man would be.
Yeah,
So
let's put a picture of her up next to Dwayne the Rock Johnson and let's see what if she looks any. Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I'd spider monkey him. But it's just not, that's just not the way it works. Yes, I cannot sit here and lie and say that there are not some women who have pushed the envelope and have gone to a distance where it does start to borderline, a masculine look. That's not me. That's not 80% or more of the women that are out there doing this, as
in physique division alone, 80% or 90% of them. Yeah.
Yes. And one of my biggest goals, and something that I am that I promote, is muscles don't make a man. I promote that. I'm an advocate for that. I feel that if you feel strong on the inside and you are brave enough to want to show that on the outside, then pick up a weight and let's do it. So I was never necessarily scared of putting on too much. And I honestly, when I was a figure girl, I would look at the physique girls and say, no, I don't ever really want to get that big. Like, I don't think I'd be comfortable at that size. I check my shoulders going through doorways now. I don't think I'd ever. And then here I am. Here I am, because you do fall in love with the process. You fall in love. For me, it's not about muscle mass. It's about where I'm holding it. It's about, the composition of it. So, and I'd like to think it's like that for a lot of my fellow competitors, women's physique, figure, or bikini, that we just want to show that strength is beautiful. It doesn't mean that we're any less of a woman. It makes us more of a woman.
Oh, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more on that. I mean, we've heard that so many times, but yeah, it's just ridiculous. I always like to say, like, you can put the best female bodybuilder of all time up on a stage against Jay Cutler, and you're able to tell a huge, significant difference just because just the natural testosterone levels, the natural other things that just guys. Guilty as charged for me, have over women, but still, I mean, yeah, it's just ridiculous. And people just don't realize the amount of effort that it takes and the amount of time in the gym. That's why I love having guests come on and share their stories, because so many people, I think, have that myth where it's just like, oh, they just must go to the gym for, like an hour and just work out. And then they just, that's about it. They don't realize the diet that you have to have. They don't realize, all the cardio that you have to do too. Most people do not realize that cardio is a part of bodybuilding. They think that, oh my God, you're going to lose muscle if you go and do cardio. And it's like, well, let me educate you then, please.
Yes. I mean, you can,
Mhm.
yes, but not if it's done right. But and even beyond the diet and the working out and the cardio, a lot of people don't realize I hate to say sacrifice, but
Yeah.
we make a lot of sacrifices to do what we do. And for me, like, do I do this for myself? Of course. Like, that's stupid to think that I don't do this for myself. Of course I
I
do. I
do it for the
enjoy having
world. I
this.
do it for everyone. Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
but at the same time, like, I do this so other women aren't afraid to do it. So
Mhm.
they aren't afraid to go into the gym and pick up a weight, because I pick up weights every single day, and I can do it and look like I do and look still remain feminine. Well, so can you, and to give them that outlet. Like, all my clients, most all of my clients are women. Um and most of them are weight loss clients. Like, and I love it because it's so empowering to them to be able to feel good enough because they are working out the way they are and doing the cardio. But as far as all that, it's the sacrifices that you make. We don't you know have a lot of social, well, when it gets right down to it, it's hard to be social. And sometimes, a lot of people that would be social with you, they get tired of hearing, I can't, I'm in prep, or I can't, I'm tired, I'm in prep. So they just sometimes just stop asking. They stop asking you to do stuff. Family, you go home, and I'm from the country. Like, it's hard to go home and my family not be able to feed me.
I was gonna say, being from the South, where eating is a huge part of the culture, especially when you have like at family gatherings. I mean, that must be difficult. How do you deal with the holidays too? Because that's one thing that I always love to ask people. Because with the holidays, we're not. I mean, the closest we have is 4th of July coming up, but especially during like the winter holidays, where you're expected to go and eat a whole turkey for Thanksgiving, or you're expected to go and just have a ton. How do you deal with that?
So I follow the rule: bites, not plates. So we family. I can grace. If I can't eat off my own fork in my own mama's house out of just the casserole dish, then we got issues. So my family's real close knit anyway, so that's never a problem. That helps me from piling like plate loads of food. I've never prepped during the holidays, but I will this year because I'm applying to do Arnold. So I will, if I'm accepted, then my birthday is November 24th. I was actually born on Thanksgiving, so I was a Thanksgiving baby. So it's one of those things where my coach and I have agreed that if I come in ready for prep, then maybe I can still enjoy Thanksgiving, but I will be in prep at Christmas, and I'm gonna have to follow the bites not plate rule for me. But I bites not plates. That's how I make it through the holidays.
I'm sure people have invented like some healthy like Christmas foods, like some healthy like nutmeg or anything like that, or some healthy,
Why? No,
whatever.
why? No,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, I always gotta say, if anyone can come up with anything like that, do it. But one of the questions that I like to add on to the question about, like the misconceptions that I have, the one benefit though that I think, helps out women so much more than it does guys when it comes to working out is just the confidence boost that it gives you. I mean, we've heard so many stories about women, and I know you probably know this vastly more than I do, being that you deal with a lot of female clients too. But just we've heard so many stories about how women, have been inspired to do other things and accomplish more with their lives just from that confidence boost that they get from working out. Because I always say that confidence is the one thing that you can take from working out and really getting to shape, and you can apply to every single aspect of your life. How have you yourself been able to apply that confidence boost that you get from that workout rush, that adrenaline rush, and just feeling good knowing that you can accomplish something? How have you been able to apply that to other aspects of your life?
Oh man, there there is really nothing quite like the rush that you get after you finish like a really hard workout, like you didn't really think you could make it through it. And you did. So, it's knowing that I can push my body and what my body can handle. I've truly taught myself that the mind controls the body. And if my mind can convince my body that it can do it, then it can. um, it's really never failed me. It's something that I preach to my clients all the time. Like when they're sitting there struggling and they say, I can't, yes, you can. Your mind says you can. So putting that into other aspects of my life, I took this year off from competing to be able to, expand, try and foster and expand my business a little bit, my personal training, clientele and stuff like that. I also work for the Texas Bodybuilding contest company, so NPC Texas, and I'm traveling with them almost every single weekend doing shows. So I never really knew. It's really taught me like to really go for what I want. I really wanted to work with the NPC because I want to give back to the athletes. I want to be involved with their journeys as much as I can and help make it as great and as you know easy, I guess, as I can. So I never really thought I could make much of an impact until I convinced myself that I could, because I started doing those things and just really going after being more involved in the industry and stuff like that. And there's a lot of because I wasn't ever around the industry or anything, I felt, when I started trying to get into it, it's challenging. You don't really know anybody, and a bunch of you're around a lot of really good looking people like all the time. Like you go to the shows and a lot of people it can be very intimidating. So, it was nice. It's nice for me to be able to be there for them and show a face, an encouraging face where they don't have to be intimidated to branch out and to want to be involved themselves, so.
Yeah, and two of the questions that I also love to ask every guest that I have on for health and fitness wise, I should say, is, for the first one, there have been so many positive things that have happened to me, ever since I started getting in really good shape and getting bigger and stronger. I put on a little bit more now just because, I have a normal, 9 to 5, or not a 9 to 5, a normal, I work nights, so a normal 40-hour a week job along with this podcast. So it's been hard for me to get to the gym as much, but still just getting bigger and stronger. The one negative thing though that I've dealt with is that you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're going to get asked to open a lot of pickle jars. I mean, I'm still at home with my parents until I move out in 2 months, and every single time that they come home with groceries, I basically have to lift the car into the driveway and carry in the groceries for them. Has that been a similar experience with you, where people take one look at you and they just assume that you can do favors for them?
Yes, pretty much. um yes, but luckily because I'm a girl, they still don't ask me very much, but I think it almost might be a reverse of that. I'm a very independent, self-sufficient person. And I feel like I've worked kind of hard to show that I'm self-sufficient on
Yeah.
the outside. I don't need you to move my stuff for me. I don't need you to get my groceries for me. But so people still do it. And I'm like, no, 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 I got it. Like, let me do it. But you know, I don't want to be treated like a little delicate flower, like I'm a steel
Yeah.
rose.
Well, like I always say, I mean, even right before I started this podcast, I got a text from a friend. Hey, moving out of my parents' house next weekend. You want to come help me move the furniture? And I always message them back. I don't want to, but I'll do it. Like I'll show up, but don't expect me to be like skipping over there with like a happy-go-lucky face. Like I'll come and I'll help you. But yeah, I mean, and also I like say it's being 6'3" too. I mean, it's a double-edged sword. You're gonna get asked no matter what. Even if you had no muscle at all, they'd ask, oh, tall guy, come and help me do that. And then like you said, you're gonna get asked to arm wrestle a lot too. I still get that all the time, especially when I go out to clubs and
So I had somebody ask me to arm wrestle in Costco. That was the last time.
let's get an arm wrestling competition going in the Costco food section. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's I know, and that's
Yes.
well, and that also leads me into. I mean, before I ask the next question, that also you sort of led me into a question that I love to ask too. Is like you are not the average looking woman, so obviously you're going to get some stares when you go out into public, and we hear that all the time. The stares. Has that been an adjustment for you to get used to that, and has it gotten easier to get used to the fact that you might get some stares and you might get some looks or some comments when you go out into the real the to the average world?
So yes and no. I was I've always kind of been an outgoing, like in your face person. So and I've always kind of been told that people know when I walk into a room. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing or not, but we're gonna say it's good. So it's not that I had to grow accustomed to getting stared at, because I feel like I've kind of always been noticeable. Um, the way that people look at you, like they kind of try and figure out, I think sometimes people, I have been mistaken for a man before from a lady at a meat counter. Like she was foreign. A lot of countries don't have
Yep.
muscular women like we have. So she called me sir, and I was like, "Excuse me, huh?" And she truly didn't know. I don't like to get upset at people like that. Like it was obvious that she was completely oblivious. But I do sometimes get certain stares. But I notice a lot of women look at me, and it's not in the negative way. Some women would be like, "Nah, bitch." But no, a lot of women look at it as like, I want to look like that. Like, how can I do that?
Mhm.
Like, I want that. Like, I want to look like that. And I've seen that more and more now, as opposed to more. I don't really see. I don't get a whole lot of women that look at me and are like, nah.
Yeah.
If anything, I get more guys that will look at me and be like, "Oh, you're too manly. You're too muscular. I like women." So I think it's more of an intimidation thing for men, not women. To be
Well, and then
honest
you
with
gotta
you.
say like, well, do women like you? That's what you guys respond to them back by, basically. So I mean, yeah, that's one thing that we've heard too, is that
Oh
it's
yeah.
it's vastly it's guys that might, but then also, I mean, a lot of times though too, like a lot of guys then do, like, because when I see someone that's clearly works out and as a woman, I appreciate that because I know how hard it takes just for even for me to look like I have any semblance of muscle. So just that hard work and dedication, I was like, wow, she must really care about it. She must have that dedication. So yeah, and now the second question, and again, this is a multi-million-dollar idea for anyone out there. Clothing. Let's be honest. If
Oh,
you're a woman
right.
with muscle, see, we get that reaction every time. Clothing. There are not going to be a lot of clothes that are made for women with muscle. I mean, the moment you said, so every time I get this reaction where when I talk about the muscle group that really took off, the moment you point at your shoulders, I was like, oh God, because with shoulders, I mean, dresses aren't going to be your best friend. Jeans are another thing that we hear of all the time, where, I mean, if you have a big lower body and a small waist, jeans are not going to be made for, I mean, it's going to be very, very hard for you to find that. What have been some ways that you've found that you're able to compensate for the fact that your clothing options can be severely limited, and the fact that you basically have to have two wardrobes, your prep wardrobe and when your off-season wardrobe?
It's funny you just said that, because I was just about to say, well, I have an off-season
Yep.
wardrobe and I have a prep wardrobe. Um, I find that my back is probably the one thing that doesn't fit in things like dresses and shirts. You know, as far as like, all of this area, it's just a little bit more wider. So, my solution is I just don't go shopping. I just don't go.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the last time I went and bought something, but I do. Luckily I'm a personal trainer, so what I wear to the gym is like, what my professional clothes are yoga pants and tank tops and stuff like that. Um, I do have one pair of jeans, and I don't sit down very quickly. I kind of do the whole like this sit, so and I have to make sure my shirt's long enough to cover up the butt crack that's about to come out, because they're gonna gape open in the back. I've heard that there's these like Freddie jeans that I don't have a pair of, but I know girls that do.
A lot of UK guests that I've had on. Apparently it's big in the UK, so a lot of them swear
But
by
they're
them.
still like
Yeah.
jeggings.
Yeah.
It's still a pair of jeggings. I mean, it's just stretchy jean colored leggings. So, it's you're still wearing leggings. So I figure, unless it's a short that's cut above my quad, which makes it then, something that a 13-year-old would wear. Or if it's a mom short that's, down like, Crocodile Dundee style, like, so there's just, I really need somebody to start up a clothing line for muscular women.
I gotta say, I had two fashion people on the podcast, guys that design and do their own fashion. I told them, I said, I have all these guests, bodybuilders, get on it, and they haven't got on it yet. But again, you guys, we have another guest who says, she'll be willing to buy them. So you have, I mean, I've had close to over 200 guests now, and I mean, half of them would be willing to buy this stuff. So you already have like
Yeah,
100
come on,
customers
guys.
straight
What's
on.
the deal?
Yeah, I don't get it. That's free money right there. I mean, that's easy money right there. So yeah, I always say that to get on that. So now I'll do a mini version of the questionnaire as we wrap things up here. So, and these are sort of like more of a getting to know you that we'll ask Brittany here. So for our first question of the questionnaire, what is one item that you always need to have in your fridge?
Coffee creamer.
That's a good one. I mean, the most shocking answer for me, especially with bodybuilders, has been mustard. Would have never guessed that in a million years, but
Oh,
mustard,
mustard.
0 calories, 0 fat. They just got to douse everything
Yeah,
that they have in
mustard's a good
mustard.
one.
Yep. So we hear that all the time. But now, out of all of your followers that you have on Instagram, what would be one thing that you think they'd be the most shocked by to find out about you if they met you in person?
That I'm a blonde. I'm a natural blonde.
Would have never guessed that, actually. I would have thought you're a natural black, to be honest. Yeah, natural blonde. Wow. How long have you had the pink hair?
Maybe like 6 years,
Oh, wow.
6 years or so.
Wow.
But yeah, I'm a natural blonde, and I really, honestly, I really don't know what color my natural hair is anymore. It's probably some version of dirty blonde.
Well, and that's awesome. Yeah, I would have honestly never guessed that myself. But now, if someone were to walk up to you and say, Brittany, we made a decision that you could change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding, and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you would like to see changed?
Mm. Oh man, I think I'd like to see weight divisions in women's physique, weight divisions in muscular categories.
How many do you think they should have? Like maybe like three weight divisions, or is there just
Maybe just
like
do
a
it the
length
same
one?
as,
Yeah.
but I mean, I guess it turns into like bodybuilding then, or maybe make women's physique a height weight requirement like classic physique is. That way, we don't have all sorts of shapes and sizes to compare. I think it might make it a little bit more easily comparative. So if you had like classic, the classic bodybuilding height weight requirements for women's physique, I think that'd be pretty legit.
I agree with that too, because let's be honest, if me and you were to like pose next to each other, I mean, it would be a lot easier for you to get a little bit more muscular than for someone who's 6'3", because you got the lengthier muscle. My second actually health and fitness guest, she lived apparently like 10 minutes away from me. I had no idea, was one of the tallest competitive female bodybuilders that's ever lived. I mean, she was 6'3", I think, and then she was like 6'7" in
Oh,
those heels. So
yeah.
yeah, I was like, yeah, that must be kind of a disadvantage then when you're about almost a foot taller than everyone else on stage. So
I also think it would help preserve quality over, the quality of muscle and symmetry and aesthetic value to physique. That's one reason why classic physique is my favorite male division, because it preserves the quality and it makes it less about muscle mass and more about aesthetic appeal.
no, yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that. And that's one thing that I'd like to see as well. But now, if you could go back in time and talk to the 18-year-old version of yourself, what would be the best piece of advice you would give her?
Don't plan for anything. Just whatever you think is going to happen ain't going to happen. Like,
Hmm.
it's life is unpredictable and it's wild and it's free, and embrace that side of it and don't worry so much about making all the plans for the futures.
I couldn't agree with you more on that. I mean, that's one thing that I wish I could just honestly just shake myself down, my 18-year-old self down, and just be like, do not worry so much about other things that mean little to nothing. Yeah.
I spent so much time worrying about the future and what was going to happen in the future, and but what if, and here I am 36 now, and I mean literally 18 years later, and I'm not where I thought I was going to be or who I thought I would be back then. Like, I'm something better. I'm something more evolved than I was able to even fathom I would be back then.
And
So
another benefit of working out, everyone, 36, she doesn't look a day over 25. That's another benefit that I always tell all of my guests, or all the people listening to. It's like, get into the gym. It makes you appear, so much more younger, and it's just one of the many benefits as well. But now, if we were to talk to you a year from today, where would you like to be at in your bodybuilding career? Where would you like to be at in life? What are some goals that you have that you would like to see accomplished if we were to talk to you a year from today?
so a year from today, hopefully I will have by then competed at the Arnold and done very well. Um, Possibly have done be preparing for a couple more shows, possibly hoping to prepare for Olympia. Um, I live in an RV, which is, my thing. So my hopes is to have a new one by then. So I'm trying to like do a little upgrading. So it's basically like buying a house, like for people. No, it's not a house, but it is like buying a house. Um, you know, Hopefully, my boyfriend, we're trying to get him transferred down here with his job. So hopefully by then he's on down here, and we're doing this thing together. And hopefully I keep all the clients that I've gotten now. All the clients that I've had are really great, and they've been with me for years. So I'm hoping we're still kicking it and doing our thing.
That's awesome. So, again, everyone, go and give her a follow. Now, lastly, I got to ask, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
Oh man, isn't that awesome? That's so sweet. So first off, I love you, Mom. I know I gave her a little bit of crap on the show, so I wanted to go ahead and give her a little shout out. She's in Costa Rica right now, so I'm gonna go ahead and give my coach a shout out. His name is Joy Rez. He's always been great to me. He's friends like family. All the fans that are listening right now who care to listen, who care. I mean, I've always just said I'm just Brittany from Bogota. Like, it's who I've always been, it's who I'll always be. So like, it's crazy to think that all of the fans that are out there who care like that you care that I never thought that anybody would ever I would ever be able to reach anybody or to inspire anybody or to matter. So that's incredible. So I thank everybody that has supported me and that still supports me and that'll continue to support me. And we're gonna do great things. I want to do great things for and with everybody. So it's exciting.
Absolutely, and again, I cannot recommend everyone else to go and follow her. I'll leave a link to her Instagram. I'll leave a link to all of her stuff down below. I highly, highly recommend that you go and check her out. And again, you guys, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.